Okay, everybody, welcome to our brand new live blab session. And this is going to be a series that me and Christoff are hosting every single week. And it's going to be on new and engaging topics around customer service and customer experience, both in the online world and the offline world. Now, today, our topic is actually going to be creating a 5-star first impression with your customers and even your employees. And with that topic in mind, we're going to explore both the online world and how that affects social media, as well as the offline world. So how can those first impressions in person affect the way we do business? Now, today, you're joined by your two hosts, Ravi, Shukle, and Christoff here. And Christoff's just going to give a little introduction about what he does and a little bit about him. Then I'll go ahead and introduce myself, and then we'll jump straight into the topics.
All right. Well, hey, thanks so much, Ravi. It's great to see you. I am Christoff J. Weihman. I am an author, speaker, and trainer. Specifically, my primary niche is the hotel and restaurant, food and beverage, hospitality arena. And I live in the beautiful, sunny, wonderful city of Las Vegas, Nevada. So we are really the worldwide mecca for the restaurant industry, as well as for a lot of other great industries. And I'm the author of my first book came out a year ago. It's called Getting to Wow, Everybody Wins with 5-Star Service. And it really is, it's a conversation to the service professional to help them elevate their level of service and hospitality. And it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm very excited. This is actually one of my favorite topics, because if we are not great at creating our first impression, everything we do after that is kind of like playing catch up. So I'm excited to share in this conversation with you today, Ravi.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, exactly. Now, the reason, just to give a quick bit of background, why we've called our series 5-Star Service, because Christoff mentioned he's got his book, Getting to Wow, Creating 5-Star Service. And myself, a little bit of background. So I'm a social media and online customer service expert. I've been managing social media brands, helping them with their customer support and community management over the last nearly about 10 years now. So I've got a lot of experience in managing big brands and small businesses, and more importantly, the way we do business online and the way we build those relationships. So we've combined our skills to come up with this weekly BAB series to really help you out. So today, then, let's kick straight into it. The topic is going to be creating a 5-star first impression with your customers. So I guess I'll kind of kick things off, which makes the most sense, and kind of really ask then, Christoff, what would you say, why would you say businesses should pay attention to that first impression they receive with their customers, and why do you think it's actually important compared to the second or even third impression?
Well, because whether it's a cliche or it's a famous quote, we've all heard that you only get one chance to make a first impression, and that's the truth. When a customer walks into your place of business, and like Ravi said, we're going to be touching on both online and offline, but my experience is not in the online arena, so I'll kind of leave most of that to you. But when a customer walks into a place of business, or a prospect where they're not even a paying customer yet, they're taking in all of the different stimuli. They're taking in, and observing, and whether their perception is accurate or not, their perception is their reality. And so, the first impression that you as a business owner, you as a person working in that business, that you create and that you present, that's going to, as I say in my book, establish or set the tone for what that interaction is going to be. Is that prospect going to turn into a paying customer, a buying customer, or are they going to remain a prospect, or not even a prospect anymore, and actually, turn you off in terms of being a potential business partner? In the hotel and restaurant arena, when people walk in the door, it's so important how they are greeted. That's the very first thing. How are they greeted? And most of the time, or often, the host, hostess, or maitre d' they maybe don't realize how incredibly important their job is, because that initial interaction, even though it's a few seconds or a few moments, it's going to determine how that person perceives that restaurant, that business. If I have a nice welcome, if I walk in and I'm greeted, very warmly in a friendly manner, and we're taken to our seats, or we're told that there is a wait, but we feel very welcomed, then we're going to have our expectations raised immediately. Like, oh, okay, that was really nice how he said that to us. Oh, okay. So our next expectation is going to play upon what was that initial interaction.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely important. Obviously, in the offline world, before you even engage with a single person in a business, the first thing you do is obviously walk in and get a feel for the surroundings. And I guess it's one of the reasons why when people go to restaurants in this particular example, that they can get put off by the decor and simply just change venue because the lighting might be poor, or
Sure.
They might not even like the statue, at the entrance. And in terms of online, it's actually the opposite, because there isn't a face-to-face eye contact when you kind of come onto someone's social profiles. But when we're talking about social media first impressions, it starts with the profile page. So your Facebook fan page, your Twitter profile page, and your Pinterest profile page. And that first impression is going to be basically what the customer can understand about you and your business within the first 10 to 15 seconds. And the reason you have that small amount of time is because the first thing they're going to do is A, look at your photo to see obviously who you are, and then B, they're going to look at your bio. So if you're not describing your business and what you do in one sentence, then they're going to likely, if you're lucky, they'll scroll down, but most likely they're going to be put off and they may go onto a different channel or go searching elsewhere. So first impressions in the online world, especially with social media, is make sure you have your branding in place and you have your bio fully complete, but also to describe what you're doing. Now, we talked about setting that first tone in terms of the offline world where you're walking into the building, and even the online world where you see a cover image. But this is a kind of a different way to approach it. But do you believe that you can change a first impression once it's been made with a business? So, we'll start with the offline world.
Sure, absolutely. As much as I believe that you only get one chance to make a first impression, I think every single time you have the opportunity to make another first impression, or to change maybe their first impression. The thing about why first impressions are so important is that that's the one thing that we can control, at least in the offline. We can control how we approach, how we greet a customer, a prospect. We may not be able to. So again, using the restaurant example, if I'm a hostess, or if I'm a server or bartender, I may not be able to control, or I certainly cannot control what's going on in the kitchen. I can't control the timing of your order, how the food comes out. But if I establish this great rapport with my customers, then they're going to be a lot more forgiving if any of those mishaps or missteps happen. And they do. We know that happens. I mean, even in retail, somebody walks into your place of business and you greet them in a real nice, friendly manner, but not too pushy, but make yourself available. Well, I don't know what that person is here to purchase. I don't know if I'm going to have what they're looking for. I may not be able to actually fulfill what they're wanting. And so it may be just a quick, short interaction. But if we've done that properly, then pretty good chance that they're going to come back again because of our initial interaction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that
if I may, as we were getting prepared for this today, as I said, is one of my favorite topics. I was thinking about, not in the customer business relationship, but in other areas. When do we try to make a great first impression? Well, first of all, how about if you're going on a first date, right? And so just think about all the things that goes into that. First of all, it's a mental preparation to begin with, right? And then it's how do you prepare yourself? How do you dress? How about when you go on a job interview? You're wanting to make a great first impression on that business. Well, in the reverse, every business owner needs to be looking at that potential customer as that prospect as somebody that you, the business owner, are interviewing for. I want to get your business. I want you to hire me. I want, so we have to be approaching them as if they're the ones making the decision upon us.
Yep, exactly. I think that's a good point, especially when we talk about customer service and gaining customers or even losing customers. You've still got a chance to turn the experience around, which is also when we look at online reviews, which obviously applies to the offline world, especially in the hotel and restaurant niche. Those are two areas where business owners might feel that they've got a 1-star review and the customer's never going to change their mind because they had a bad experience. I think what you mentioned is important because it gives them a chance to approach that customer, and obviously gives them a chance to turn around that experience, and maybe it might have highlighted some things they could have improved, which gives them a chance to then take action on those to obviously help improve the experience overall for the customer.
So you're talking about in the online, right, where it's almost like it's a twofold approach. Maybe we might have failed in the offline, but now the social media manager is able to recreate or establish a new first impression. And, you can never reclaim that moment that was lost, but you can certainly begin again. And let me ask you, because this is your area of expertise. Here's, as you know, I do training for hotels and restaurants here in Las Vegas, and I'm always looking at the reviews, especially on Yelp. Sure. And here's one thing that I noticed at a particular, this is one of the hotel casinos here in Las Vegas, when there was a negative review, and this has been kind of a consistent theme that I've seen with this particular business, when there is a not really great review, the restaurant manager will respond and, apologize. But then something very strange, they say, we would like to know more about what really happened. Would you mind emailing? And then they give the name and contact of, their social media person or their, customer service director. To me, it's good that they're reaching out. But number two, if I'm a customer that's already not happy, why are you putting the onus upon me as a customer to reach out to tell you more about my bad experience? Shouldn't that person be the one initiating the conversation? What do you think, Ravi?
I think that's a good point. And I think with regards to that, it's actually the right thing to do to get that information from them, because you want to find out exactly why they're angry. But the way the online world is different is by complaining, the customers actually feel listened to. So if you actually don't acknowledge it, or especially in the internet world, you're going to make things worse because they'll now tweet it out to thousands, or Facebook or Instagram, whatever they want to use. So the reason that as a business you ask for that feedback is so you can actually address them one-to-one, just so the reviews and conversation doesn't spiral out of control. So you can actually jump in there and say, well, we noticed you didn't like the food, and the reason you didn't like the food is because it wasn't spicy enough, as an example. They can then address that and say, well, our chef has looked into this and we'll now make sure we add this. So they can then take action. That angry customer then gets a chance to see what the business is going to do to make that experience better. And then it gives them the chance to say, you know what, maybe I got the wrong end of the stick here. You guys obviously care about the customers and the experience, and it also gives them a chance to come back again. So that's, I guess, the main reason with feedback. And especially in the online world, you mentioned Yelp, but even things like Twitter and Facebook, when there's negative comments, do not delete any negative comments. If they're abusive to staff or to employees in your firm, 100% you can delete them. And that's what we so-called, the haters. Yes, you can delete them. You can remove them from your community, but I'll give them a warning first. But again, when it comes to general negative feedback, try and find out why they're feeling that way, because that's going to be valuable insight into how they actually feel the experience and allows you to then turn it around. So I know in the offline world, if I complain that the buffet queue is too long, it might be too late because, I might not want to eat there if it's a half an hour wait. But if the manager came up to me and said, we're really sorry for this, maybe there's a coupon or something they can do to help, then I suddenly think, you know what, this experience wasn't the best, but he understood the situation I'm in and
Sure.
I can come and make it right. I mean, how would you address that situation, I guess, in the restaurant field if you had that bad experience where you got made to wait too long? And then, what would you say as the manager to that customer to try and help them turn it around?
What would I say to them if I were the manager?
Yeah.
I wouldn't let it happen to begin with. No, again, I think it has to do with the interaction and the engagement. Here's what I see a lot of times is that management never show their face in a restaurant on the floor until there is a problem, until there is a complaint. And that's a failure right there. As long as we understand that sometimes it gets busy. Sometimes they weren't expecting, this big rush. They didn't staff enough people. We understand those kind of problems happen, or there's a breakdown. Something happens in the kitchen that's unforeseen, right? And so it sets everything back. But if management is on the floor and they're, greeting guests and just observing and making their presence known, number one, they're already aware when there is some issue or some problem, so they don't need to have one of the service staff come and tell them necessarily. And number two, just having walked the floor and made eye contact with many of the guests, there's already been some unspoken rapport that's been established. And so when there is a complaint, the manager there's almost like a familiarity already. Maybe we didn't introduce each other, but we already saw each other and we made that eye contact, Yeah. And so it's much easier when the manager comes over because that, like you were saying earlier, a customer just wants to be heard. A customer wants to know that their complaint is being considered legitimate. And that is a big point that needs to be stressed. Unfortunately, in many restaurants, the managers are in the office and they're in the kitchen and they never come out until there's a complaint. So they approach the table and they say things like, "Was there a problem?" Instead of again, first impression. So even if they aren't on the floor and they're approaching the table, that's their opportunity to create a first impression. How about introducing yourself? "Hi, my name's Jim. I'm the general manager here. I understand that there was something that wasn't exactly to your liking. I wonder if there's a way that I can help you out. Tell me what happened." That's much different than saying, "Oh, I heard there was a problem." All of a sudden, the customer feels like, wow, I'm on the defensive now, and I don't even know who you are. I don't know if you're the manager, if you're the chef, if you're just, somebody who's walking by. So introduction is so important, but it seems to be something that we, in the industry, we kind of forget. And I mean, my wife and I, we go out for dinner all the time, and we see this so often. And I will stop the person as they're talking or after they talk, and I say, "Pardon me, who are you?" I don't even know who I'm talking to.
I think that's very important. It also affects the online world, whereas you might not realize that. For example, you might tweet someone saying you enjoyed their blog post or their video, and for them not to respond kind of makes you feel like, A, they're not listening. And when we're talking about first impressions, it doesn't leave the best first impression. Obviously, I understand that influencers get thousands or hundreds of messages a day, but if they can take the time to acknowledge those who've obviously followed them in the first place, you're going to have a much loyal and more engaging community. So I think that's important as well in the online world to kind of appreciate when you get those responses through and you're having that conversation. So find out about the customer as well as obviously talking about yourself as well. Now, also to help businesses and those guys tuning in now who are thinking, well, we've talked about first impressions, we've talked about do we get a second chance at turning that around, which we know that that is possible. But what would you say are some of the steps that they can put into place in the offline world to help create that first impression for their customers? So like, I'm a brick and mortar business right now. I'm waiting for customers to come into the store, but what are some few pointers that I could use to help create that 5-star first impression?
Well, before I answer that, let me just ask a rhetorical question, which will lead into an answer. When does a first impression begin?
Mm.
So that's something that's really important to consider. A lot of people think, well, first impression is, first interaction.
Yeah.
When I walk into the store, when I walk into the government office, when I walk into the place of business. But actually, first impression is created, or at least it is influenced long before that first face-to-face interaction. What could that be? Well, as you mentioned, reviews. So things like reviews, referrals, and your reputation that's already established in the community. Whether it's accurate or not, it is a perception that people have. And so those things are already establishing in the mind of the customer or the prospect a potential first impression. It sets a bar or an expectation of what they think they're going to experience. Another thing, how about when you walk up or you drive up to the building, to that office? What does the parking lot look like? What is the facade of the building? I mean, I have been to doctors' offices or law offices that they didn't look very inviting, appealing. And then when I worked in staffing and recruiting, I used to call on businesses of all industries. I remember a couple of construction companies walking in, and it felt like I was walking into a 5-star hotel lobby.
Yeah.
And so they're creating a great first impression with just the physical aspects of the business. How about the way people answer the phone?
Yeah.
It's very important to have everybody on the team, everybody on the staff, not talking like a robot and saying a script, but certainly saying or responding or answering the phone in a similar manner. What's the difference? A phone rings and a person says, "Hello, hi, is this J&J Plumbing?"
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah." Or, "Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for calling ABC Bistro. How can we make your day better?" Like, oh, wow. There's already this upbeat, positive attitude.
Yeah.
Even if I've called the wrong number, I might want to still talk to that person because so there's so many different aspects. So making sure that everybody on your team is of the right mindset, that they know how important customer service is. As we talk, it's like almost customer experience is a cliche or a buzzword now.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies talk about customer service or customer experience like it's a project. Well, we need to do better customer service. That's not the way to approach it. It should be an everyday, moment-to-moment mentality, attitude, approach. Everybody's doing customer service. Everybody is creating that first impression, from the hostess or the office manager to the GM or to the president. And in fact, those first people that are seated at the front, whether they're a receptionist or office manager, whatever the position may be, they are having a huge influence on whether you actually get business with that prospect or not. Somebody could walk in and, like you said, walk out the door just because, the lighting isn't right. Or you walk into a place, is the music appropriate to the tone and the mood that you're trying to establish? If you're playing hardcore rap music and this is supposed to be, I don't know, a health spa, maybe I'm not going to feel really rejuvenated and relaxed when I walk into that place.
Yeah, so understand your environment, and then obviously train your staff is definitely a big one that you mentioned as well. I think that's a good point because that kind of reflects into the online world as well. But apart from a building, you have your profile in place. So first impressions, actually, same way as the offline world, they start way before your customers or fans even find your content on social media. So they might just type in the word Christoff right now into Google. The first impression is going to be whatever comes up in the search, right? So as an online business, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Facebook, whatever social network you're on, you need to make sure, like I said in the beginning, you have that branding, you have your bio in there, and that you are creating regular content, because that's what's going to help create that first impression for many people that haven't even heard of you before. Like today, we're live on Blau. We've got a few listeners tuning in that may not have heard us speak before or who know who we are. So a first impression for them would be hearing us speak. And then if they did check out our Twitter profiles, they're going to see that small bio, which explains what we do and how we can help. So I think in the online world as well, make sure you do that. And secondly, to touch upon your point about training staff, it applies to the social media space as well.
Sure.
If Twitter has less characters, Facebook has more, Instagram has more hashtags, your employees need to know that that is how those social networks work. If they don't know how to tweet someone back, if they're asking you what a retweet is, these are all things that affect the experience. You'll be surprised in a lot of businesses. For me personally, I've been in a lot of marketing agencies, and traditionally the PR company will actually handle the social media, not the employees. Thankfully, times are changing now where more businesses are saying, you know what, as a business, we all need to have a handle on our company and what's going on and what's being said. So I think training your employees is definitely a big takeaway. And obviously that tone of voice that you mentioned, where it's a phone call in the offline world, in the online world, it's a personal greeting. So don't just say TY for thank you or, THNX for thanks. Like, take a bit more time to personalize the response and obviously make sure you're putting it out that way.
I think that's a really great point. And I find when I'm emailing or getting email responses, it often seems that the higher up the individual is, the less they almost email as if they're on Twitter. Like they feel like they are limited to a certain amount of characters. And I don't know if it's because I have a sales background and I've been in service and hospitality for so long, but even if I'm just, I'm emailing somebody that I know quite well, but we're doing business or potentially doing business together, I always feel the need to put a little, salutation. Hey, I hope you're having a great day, or something to that nature, because I feel like, again, it's establishing a tone instead of, I'm following up with people that we've discussed about me coming and doing some training for their staff. And it's been 2 weeks since we've talked. Rather than me saying, hey, have you come up with a date yet? Or when do you think we're going to do this? I want to set them at ease. What do you think about that? Because the response back often from GMs or executives is, one line, yes, that's fine. Or, that's kind of the way that they speak, but I don't feel that that's the best way, to have that communication. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that definitely shows. I've obviously personally emailed you, and I've seen the bottom half of the email as something a lot more personal. And even if you sign off with something such as have a great day or make it extraordinary, that small sentence, it might be part of your email signature, but it just sets the tone for me, knowing that this person is wishing you well. So my sentiment and the way I think about you is going to be in a positive light, because I know this person is obviously genuine and obviously wishing these well wishes. It might sound quite simple and quite boring, if I'm honest, but having that small bit of interaction with them at the end of the email or even the offline conversation where you say, thank you for your service, enjoy the rest of your day. It does make a difference. And so that kind of leads off, obviously, respect for people's time here. But for the last kind of bit, I thought about, what would you say is a key way that businesses can take advantage of that first impression? So they've created a good impression now. So let's just say in the offline world, you've greeted them, they're sitting down at the table or they've walked into your store. How can you now take advantage of developing that first impression? So you've kind of done the smiling, the welcomes, and how do you take things one step further?
Well, I think the most important thing from that point on is always to read your customers or read your guests. And that means, we don't approach every single person in a robotic way. We don't say the same phrase over and over again. And this is notorious in the restaurant industry. Hi, good evening. My name is Tom. I'll be your server. Hi, I'm 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 Tom. Like, imagine this is being said over and over and over and over and over again. How do you greet people when they come into your place of business, to your home? I mean, you don't say the same phrase. Or if you're out networking, you approach people based upon where they're at. And I use, in my trainings, I have a nice little simple acronym for READ, R-E-A-D, your guests or your customers. So READ, the R stands for recognize. Recognize that everybody that comes into your place of business is not the same. They have different agendas. They have different motivations. They have different preferences. Once you recognize that, then you need to engage them in that manner, right? So E would be to engage, and I would also add enthusiastically and with energy, not just a very humdrum, boring. You have to realize these people are these people are the ones who pay your bills, right? These are the lifeblood of our business. So recognize, engage. A is then you adjust your approach. You don't talk to every single person the same manner. And again, if we use the restaurant as an example, when we have a group of 3 businessmen walking in with laptops, or in the old days, briefcases, but nobody carries a briefcase anymore, except you want to, Ravi, right? If they come in with laptops and they sit down and they want a corner booth, these gentlemen or these business ladies don't want to be bothered, but they still want appropriate, accurate, inconspicuous service. But if a family comes in with 3 small children, they're going to want a different approach. They're going to want to be more entertained. So we want to adjust our approach and not have a one-size-fits-all. And then D is, once you already understand all of that, is you deliver it. And my book is called Getting the Wow. That's delivering the wow. You deliver based upon all of that information that you've assessed as you welcome them in. And as we become more proficient in our respective industries, then we know how to do this. And I'm sure that it's the same in the online as well. You're going to adjust your approach based upon what that initial interaction is. And even, we all probably know about when you go on a job interview, there's something called mirroring. Yeah. If you're the person that is interviewing you is relaxed and sit back like that, then you should not quite as much, but you should relax a little bit. If they're on the edge of their seat forward, then you should be doing a similar type posture. And I think in the communication, our verbal communication as well as our written communication, we should somehow mirror so that they feel a connection with us. But that's READ, R-E-A-D, recognize, engage, adjust your approach, and then deliver the wow.
Yeah, I think
that's free. I'll give that to you for free.
Yeah, that's a great insight. I'll make sure I turn that into a nice little graphic as well. So anyone following, first of all, for those tuning in, make sure you follow us on Twitter as well, because we'll be sharing labs in real time as well as doing a weekly series. But I'll make sure I create a nice little graphic for that as well. And
great.
Just to touch upon those 2 points, I think they reflect in the online world as well. And the first is personalize your approach. The same way you mentioned, Tom introducing himself to every customer in the restaurant, people do that in the online world, but in a worse way. And what I mean by that is they automate the process. So you followed me, and I'm automatically going to say, thanks for following with an exclamation mark. That is a bot that is automated, and it still goes on today from people that have got 10 followers to 10,000 to 10 million. I guarantee they're still using that to save time. Now, the problem is, A, yes, you'll save time because it's automatically tweeting it out, but B, you're not really gaining any customers, trust, loyalty, engagement in the process, because I can tell when you said, thanks for following with the explanation, you haven't actually personalized it, and your followers and community can see that. So I think personalize your approach on social as well. It's a great way to add their name. And the difference with social media compared to the offline world is they've actually shared a little bit about them already, which means you can go into their profile and find out what they have, and then obviously jump on board and use that when you're having that conversation with them.
Since you have so much more experience, I'd like to ask you a question, Ravi, specifically about Twitter, and maybe I'm guilty of this. My process, because I don't get thousands of new followers, I get 10 to 20 maybe a week, something like that. So once a week, I will sit down, maybe up to 30. I will sit down and I will do a group tweet of maybe 5 at a time, saying thanks to my new followers, Jim Smith, Shelly Jones, etc. Add an icon, and yeah, thanks for following. And I do that rather than when they follow me, hitting back and saying thanks. What do you think about that? Or is there another way that I can do it that is not automated, but uses my time wisely? I mean, it takes about an hour for me to do that. I write down everybody's.
Yeah, I think there's two schools of thought about it. If I followed someone or they followed you, the myth is that you have to obviously respond back in the shortest time possible. Now, I wouldn't say you have to rush and give a response. That's the first kind of myth. The second thing is you just want to acknowledge that they followed. So normally you can say thanks for following, or even thanks to social media, you can kind of like, you can heart, you can favorite the response, which is another way of telling them you've acknowledged them. Now, I understand if someone's listening and they say, well, I've got 54,000 followers and I get 1,000 followers a week as an example. How can I keep up with that kind of, influx? In that certain situation, you can do a general shout out and say, thank you for all my new followers. It doesn't have to be individual for every single one, because we are talking about scaling it at the same time.
Sure.
But if someone addresses you with a question, or they've specifically said, I found you, Christoff, from your blog post, then that deserves a personal response. If someone's just followed you because they've listened to our blab today, then obviously you want to get back to them. But if there's a lot of those followers in bulk, you can do a shout out altogether. Now, I'm just going to actually take a question now from Jan, who's just jumped in to say, how do you handle those responses if you're a solopreneur? As there's so much to think about, especially on social like Twitter. We have Blab that we're on today, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Now, the easy way is there are some tools out there which can obviously help with this process. And one tool that I recommend, Jan, is called Mention. It's simply www.mention.com. And basically, what this tool does is it allows you to insert a keyword. So, for example, you might type in Jan Huego. Every time your name gets mentioned in there, it will actually ping in and give you a notification to say your name has been mentioned on either a social channel, a website, or a blog. So it's not just social media. Now, those mentions pinging in is going to allow you to jump in and say thank you to the people who've given you a shout out that might not have tagged you online. Now, in response to all your social networks, I myself will class myself as a solopreneur as well. I create the content, I manage a community. That's all done single-handedly. Now, to keep up with that daily, you just need to scroll through your channels. But like I said, don't be afraid that you have to respond to everything that very minute. Not everything's a priority. So by all means, get back to them. But if it's a lot of followers at one time, you can do a group shout out to say, for example, I might say on Blab that appreciate all our followers who tuned in today. It doesn't mean it's not personal. It just means I appreciate you as a group. If they're giving you individual feedback, for example, Jan, we really like your blog post, your video, your image that you sent us, then it gives you a chance to give a personal response. So use your time on those type of interactions. At the same time, when you are getting followers and everything else, just acknowledge them. I mean, I guess in the easiest way to do it would be to just pick out the conversations where someone's actually addressed you and obviously address them back personally. So I think that would be the best way to handle all of those. Mention.com is obviously the key one. Hootsuite, again, manages it. But if I'm being honest, just kind of check it once a day to make sure that you haven't missed any of those personal conversations. Now, just to transition that into the offline world so we can give our listeners today both sides of the coin. In the offline world, you don't really get loads of customers saying we love your product or whatever. You kind of get the feedback as you go along. But how would you say that a business can appreciate its customers who might have said, thank you, we enjoyed your product, or even if it's a physical store, they might have said, we ate here last week and we love it, so we're back again. How do you handle that positive sentiment at the same time? So you build that first impression. They've said thank you once they've come in. Now they're happy with it. How do you kind of take that one step further and maybe, acknowledge the feedback or say thank you? Or how do you kind of embrace the, positive side of things when someone gives your company that direct feedback?
Well, the bookend to the welcome is actually in the restaurant business, we say a warm welcome and a fond farewell. this is another area where I think a lot of businesses fail. It is missing the chance to say goodbye and thank the customer or the prospect as they walk out the door. I mean, it's a very simple thing, but it's again amazing how much of an impact that has on the customer, on the guest as they're walking out the door. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your business. It's very interesting how many times we all as consumers go to a place and we've already given our money and we are the customer, we've paid them, and we don't hear thank you from them. I'm standing at the grocery store, I just, spent my money, and the checkout person just looks at me and I say, thank you. And they don't say thank you. They should be thanking us because we are the one who just brought them the business. And then I think there are some ways that businesses can be creative. I remember when I was in the car business, I sold cars for a short period of time, and we would often take pictures of the customer, of the new car buyer. And in those days, we just did Polaroid pictures. But to take a picture and put it up on Facebook, say, I have a friend who works here in Las Vegas at BMW, and he's always posting pictures of his new customers. And just imagine how that would make the customer feel. Another thing is, how about sending them a card, a thank you card for their business? Now, of course, in a restaurant, you're not going to send, a customer, or a thank you card to 300 customers that came in today. But if you have a growing relationship with a customer or somebody who brought in maybe a large group of people rather than just, one or two people, they had a business event and they brought in 50 people, then I think that it would be appropriate to send a thank you card. And again, the digital world is supposed to be able to enhance our social connections and interactions, but sometimes it seems like we've forgotten some of the old school ways of doing things. As much as somebody would like an email, who doesn't love getting a hard physical card in the mail?
I think that's very important. That also applies to the online world because social media isn't the be all and end all in terms of communication with your customers. It's just a portal or a way of communicating. The end goal is obviously getting to know them. If you're lucky face to face, maybe it might be at an event. But 9 times out of 10, if it's a phone call or even a blab, we're kind of more interactive here. So the thank you card is a great way for them to actually see that you've taken the time out, you've used your own handwriting, and then you've written them a personal message. I think that applies to both online and offline. I think that's a great way to kind of finish off our topic today in terms of making sure you thank your customers as well is another great way to add that first impression. So after they've obviously given you that feedback, a great way to acknowledge it is to, if you can get their information, if it's an email, if it's a social channel, or even if it's in person. So you might be able to have their record on file, what they've maybe booked with you or they've come into your store before, then having that thank you card there is going to give them something that they're not expecting. And that's going to help to create that 5-star, experience that we're talking about today. So I think, how would you kind of summarize what we've talked about? If you had to give a key summary on creating that 5-star first impression with your customers, what would you say your key takeaway would be for those tuning in?
First impressions, you get one chance to make a first impression, and yet every day you are always making first impressions. I would say don't just assume or presume because somebody is a customer that you're going to be able to maintain and retain them based on that one first impression. So you want to make sure that you're always giving that great impression, always giving that great service. Definitely reading, as we talked about earlier, recognizing that every customer is different, knowing what their preferences, their agendas, their motivations are, engaging them with an appropriate approach or appropriate response based upon, like you said, a personalized approach, and then really delivering the wow. And it's an ongoing situation. It's not just a set of 5 steps. Well, I did these 5 steps and they should think that they got great service. It's that personal connection, as always. And one thing that I didn't really mention, but you kind of drew it out, and I talk about this a lot in my trainings, is it always comes down to the feeling. What is the feeling that your customer or prospect is walking in with, and what is the feeling that they are leaving with. Hopefully, the feeling is at least as good, but hopefully better as they are leaving because of the experience and the interaction and relationship that they've had with you during that time of the customer experience. But it all starts with the first impression. And leaders, management, really have to lead the way and train their staff or provide training for their staff so that everybody's talking the same talk and everybody is of the same mindset. We can probably do 5 more blabs just on this subject alone, but I think those are some of the key points.
Yeah, I think there's some good key takeaways. And then just to transition into online, I think the same points you made reflect in the online world. So all those listening who have got social media channels, email, any online communications, even website, having a consistent approach on a daily basis to your customers. So if it takes you 1 hour to respond on Monday, make sure it takes you 1 hour on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Add your personal touch with your name. Also, don't be robotic when you type and reply. So if you send me a message on social, I might throw in a smiley face, a wink, a tongue sticking out, whatever, because it's the personality coming across. So, don't feel that you have to copy and paste to save time. Add a personal approach. Make sure you're able to do that on a consistent basis. And also, make sure you take the time out to understand your customer situation as well. So don't rush to save time by, speeding through the process and obviously aiming to answer as quick as possible. Take that extra bit of time. And that's going to help you create a 5-star first impression. Now, we're just going to finish off by sharing quickly, Christoff, where those tuning in can find you and contact you. And then we'll obviously give a shout out to our next show, which is going to be next week. So I want to make sure you guys hit the follow button or below in the comments as well, as we will be having the same show every week covering different topics on how you can build 5-star service. So Christoff, if they want to reach you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Oh, we've got so many different ways. Let's first of all, I want to show you the copy of my book. If you can see that, Getting to Wow. Everybody Wins with 5-Star Service. And we can find that at gettingtowowbook.com.
Yes.
And there's my Twitter handle right there at Weihman Christoff. If you want to email me directly, please feel free to contact me at Christoff@aspiretowow.com. That's Christoff, Christoff, at ASPIRE2WOW.com. And lastly, every week we write a blog, we, meaning me, about customer service and hospitality. And that can be found at soupfly.wordpress.com. And we have readers in over 100 countries. Very, very excited. And we love our readers. And in fact, I just reposted a post from a while ago that is all about what we've been talking about today. It's entitled A Greeting, a Seating, and Setting the Tone. So I would love for you to follow me. Please feel free to reach out personally. And it's been such a great pleasure to spend this time with you. I'm looking forward to next week. How about you, Ravi? How are people able to connect with you?
Yes, I've also put all those links into the chat, so I'll make sure I add them in the comments below as well, so they can reach you via your email and your website, as well as your blog. For those that want to get in touch with me, simply head over to ravishukle.com. I've got a free bonus video there where I actually go into a little bit more detail on how you can deliver that 5-star service on social media. I kind of break down the tools and tips in a bit more detail, so make sure to check that out. And lastly, to end the show, we want to make sure you guys tune in every week on Thursday. Make sure you follow us, and we'll make sure we tweet out those times as well. It's going to be focused around how your business can deliver that 5-star service online and offline. And we're going to be covering a range of topics, all the way from customers to employees to the behaviors to how you can actually engage and get that loyalty and trust. So I want to say a big thank you for everyone for tuning in today, and make sure you follow us because we will be saving a recording of this replay. So in case you missed anything or want to find out any tools. You can go through this in your spare time and dive into the content whenever you feel free. So a big thank you from both of us, and have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
If I can just interject 1 second, Ravi,
Yeah,
just
sure.
one quick correction. Gettingtowowbook.com.
Okay, perfect.
Gettingtowowbook.com. Gettingtowow.com is not me.
Make sure we link that up as well. Gettingtowowbook.com as well. Make sure I put that in the comments as well as the Weihman, so we can check that out. So again, big thank you guys. Make sure you follow us, and don't forget to tune in next week, as we're going to be discussing a brand new topic on how your business can deliver that 5-star service.
Yes. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday.